Senate Republicans released a long-anticipated report Wednesday that details Democratic presidential nominee Joseph Biden's alleged conflicts of interest when he was vice president and his son Hunter Biden was making millions with sweetheart business deals in Ukraine, Russia and China. The report said it wasn't clear whether Hunter Biden's lucrative gig on the board of the Ukrainian energy company Burisma Holdings affected United States policy, but that the issue nevertheless percolated in the background when his father led Obama administration efforts in that graft-riddled country. Still, the document threw new light on the Biden's suspicious business dealings and exposed more of the potential stumbling blocks for the elder Mr. Biden, as he begins the final sprint to the November 3 election showdown with President Trump. The report, released by Senators Ron Johnson of Wisconsin and Chuck Grassley of Iowa said, "The Obama administration knew that Hunter Biden's position on Burisma's board was problematic and did interfere in the efficient execution of policy with respect to Ukraine. Mr. Johnson is chairman of the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee and Mr. Grassley heads the Finance Committee. Mr. Biden's Democratic allies called the report a desperate political stunt and part of foreign interference efforts by Russia and others to aid President Trump. The Biden campaign said that Mr. Johnson's investigation helped subsidize a foreign attack against the sovereignty of our elections with taxpayer dollars." Biden campaign spokesman Andrew Bates said, "The senator has now explicitly stated he is attempting to exploit it to bail out Donald Trump's re-election campaign." The report underscored the awkward juxtaposition of the elder Mr. Biden's diplomacy and his son's business. It is the same arrangement President Trump sought to get Ukraine to investigate, which ultimately led to the House's impeachment of him in December 2019. The report showed that George Kent, the former deputy chief of mission at the United States Embassy in Kyiv, raised concerns about perceptions of conflicts of interest with Hunter Biden's position on the board, but that they went unheeded. Mr. Kent wrote in an email to colleagues in 2016. Furthermore, the presence of Hunter Biden on the Burisma board was very awkward for all U.S. officials pushing an anti-corruption agenda in Ukraine. Mr. Kent delivered similar testimony during last year's impeachment probe, though he also said he didn't think elder Mr. Biden did anything wrong. The senator's report said Mr. Kent indicated that the United States government never made a decision about Burisma based on Hunter Biden's position, but that he was concerned there could be an appearance of a conflict. According to the report, the extent to which Hunter Biden's role on Burisma's board affected United States policy toward Ukraine is not clear. But what is clear from the records, however, is that State Department officials, particularly Kent himself, regularly considered how Hunter Biden's connection to Burisma might affect the execution of U.S. policy. In 2016, the vice president had threatened to withhold $1 billion in loan guarantees unless the country's leaders fired Ukraine's top prosecutor, who also had reportedly been looking into Burisma. The Biden campaign has pointed out that Mr. Johnson himself was among several United States senators who had backed the ouster of the prosecutor, Victor Shokin, over corruption issues. The report does cast doubt on the elder Mr. Biden's public position that he and his son never discussed Hunter's business dealings. Amos Hochstein, a former State Department official, said he raised potential conflict of interest issues with the vice president himself at the White House in October 2015. The report said, according to Hochstein, Hunter became aware of Hochstein's West Wing conversation with the vice president, who had mentioned it to Hunter. An investment firm Hunter Biden co-founded also got a $3.5 million wire transfer in 2014 from Elena Baturina, the wife of a former mayor of Moscow. The report also found that Hunter Biden had business associations with Yi Jianming, Gong Guangdong, and other Chinese nationals linked to the Communist government and the People's Liberation Army. Those associations resulted in millions of dollars in cash flow, according to the report. The Democrat-led House impeached President Trump for what they described as his attempting to strong-arm Ukraine into digging up dirt on the Bidens. The GOP-led Senate voted to acquit him earlier this year. House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence Chairman Adam Schiff, who led the impeachment drive, said the senators were getting fed Russian propaganda from Andriy Derkach, whom the Trump administration sanctioned earlier this month for an apparent effort to undermine the 2020 presidential election. Mr. Schiff, California Democrat said. The Kremlin must be very pleased. Everyone should see this report for what it is, an election year hit job that uses as its very basis Russian disinformation. The report said that Mr. Johnson and Mr. Grassley were not influenced by Russian disinformation. According to the report, it said, since the offices of Chairman Johnson and Chairman Grassley did not receive, and were unaware of, the information that Derkach had allegedly sent, it is impossible that Derkach's efforts could have shaped the committee's investigation in any way. Democrats were so insulting to Attorney General William Barr during his last appearance on Capitol Hill that the Justice Department won't send witnesses to 2 upcoming hearings, the department informed lawmakers on Monday. Judiciary Committee Chair Gerald Nadler had asked for top officials to testify at hearings over the next 10 days on civil rights and on prison operations. But Assistant Attorney General Stephen Boyd delivered a withering rebuke, writing Mr. Nadler to say the committee had a chance to ask Mr. Barr about those subjects when he appeared for a hearing in late July, and instead Democrats devoted their time entirely towards scolding and insulting the Attorney General. They also refused to give Mr. Barr a chance to respond, and indeed some made clear they didn't want to hear what he had to say. Mr. Boyd wrote, all told, when the Attorney General tried to address the committee's questions, he was interrupted and silenced in excess of 70 times. One member interrupted him and admitted, well, I don't want you to tell your story. Things got so bad that at one point Mr. Barr asked to take a 5-minute break and Mr. Nadler refused that common courtesy. Mr. Barr chided him. You're a real class act. Mr. Nadler eventually agreed to the break. But the experience left such a sour taste that the Justice Department says it's not interested in any repeats. Mr. Boyd wrote, having squandered its opportunity to conduct a meaningful oversight hearing with the Attorney General, it remains unclear how further public spectacles with other department officials would now, a mere 14 legislative days since the Attorney General's hearing, advance the committee's legitimate oversight efforts. He said if Mr. Nadler agrees to behave in the conduct of future hearings, they might be able to work on something later. Mr. Boyd also cited recent Supreme Court jurisprudence that said while Congress does have the power to hold hearings and investigate, it must serve a legitimate legislative purpose. The rebuff is the latest move in an escalating battle between the administration and House Democrats. The House has held Mr. Barr in contempt of Congress, and has impeached President Trump. Neither effort succeeded. Earlier this month Democrats issued a subpoena demanding the appearance of acting Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf. He defied that subpoena, citing a long-standing tradition that people who have been nominated for positions don't appear to testify outside of the confirmation process.